Apple just changed their AI tools for good, but Microsoft's catching up.
Welcome to the All Future podcast, where we talk all things future, including AI, humanoid robotics, Apple, a lot of different tech. And thank you so much for watching these videos. If you've been watching, make sure to subscribe if you are not. Thank you so much. And today we are talking about AI as it relates to a bunch of different companies, including Microsoft specifically. So we just made another episode talking about Google's AI, and also talking about the idea that a lot of different companies are in this space, and kind of there's no like clear leader at this point. I think for a while it was OpenAI, but now we have so many tools coming out. And the latest tool is Microsoft's CoPilot Vision that is launching. And so CoPilot Vision is the thing that will read your screen on your computer and be able to perform actions based on it. They were kind of early to this, and the way the info was stored, a lot of people did not like, because it was basically just in plain view on your hard drive. So it's the kind of thing where if it's collecting in real time everything that you're doing and then storing everything you've done in real time on your computer, that's a terrifying thing as to what could happen there. But they have a lot more safety this time, and I think basically once it is used and processed, all of your data is deleted. But this is coming out, and I think this is a pretty cool feature. I really like this feature. I think it makes a lot of sense. What do you think about Copilot Vision?
Yeah, you've got to have this if you're going to have any kind of AI that can actually help you, right? Like it needs to be able to see the screen. This is I think this is absolutely something that's needed if you want to make a functional AI. Does it have privacy issues? Well, yeah, of course it does. So does every piece of technology that we make now, man. Like it's what are you talking about? Like if you're worried about this, I got real bad news for you on everything else that's spying on you, right? So this is I again I think it has to be implemented. Microsoft demoed this a while back. One of their demos actually had it where it could see your screen and help you with a video game you were playing. That was their kind of example they used. But obviously, just seeing the browser and just seeing what you're doing on the internet is massively helpful for any AI assistant.
Definitely. And there are some limitations with this, which is interesting because Google just announced their Chrome extension that is going to be able to browse the web for you. I think it's called Mariner. And I'm curious to see what limitations that has once it comes, because according to this, Copilot Vision does have limitations as to what it can actually process, including paywalled sites and sensitive content. So it's limiting Vision to a pre-approved list of popular sites when you're browsing the internet as to what it can act on. So right there, that seems kind of limited. I mean, popular sites, I don't think that the work I would be doing on the internet that I would want Copilot's help with would probably be a listed popular site, like just some sort of research or whatever.
Yeah, the only thing I want from a popular site is the tech that's already built into all browsers now, and that's AI summary, right? So, like I don't need like an extra layer of LLM involved in that,
Yeah, so I'm very curious to see where this expands from here. But again, it's that thing we've been talking about a lot where initial things that are able to access this much information or able to act on your behalf are going to be very simple versions of this because they don't want it to do something wrong. So when it's popular sites, that means that they have been able to manage how this is reading these sites probably and how it's acting, versus it just turns into the Wild West once it's the entire internet that it can be reading and processing. So I'm curious to see that whole rollout and see how useful this is. And mainly my question with all of this is, how long would it take? How many years would this feature have to be out before I would buy a Microsoft machine, because Apple does not have a Copilot Vision feature? And I would guess that a third party will just make this a version of this regardless.
Yeah. Oh, that's that's funny because earlier in another video we were talking about what it would take for me to use Gemini over ChatGPT. Is there some kind of AI feature that hard baked into a Windows laptop, for example, that I can't get on the Mac side that would make me switch to Windows? I'll tell you one thing, this is not it. So it would need to be a lot more impressive than this. When the thing is too, though, I mean, I don't think we're going to see that really, right? Like, I think any feature that Microsoft develops, they're going to put on their software products that can work on an iPhone, right? Same with Google, to like that, like you can obviously use those apps on the phone. What you're missing is just probably that deep level integration where you don't have to like kind of go into a third party thing. And yeah, like how good is that going to have to be to get me to switch? Pretty good, but I don't think impossible.
Yeah. I mostly think about some of the use cases of when this came out, of when you're browsing around and maybe there's something that caught your eye that you remember, but you cannot remember where it was located. And then you prompt the AI and it's able to go back through everything you saw and pull that out. But I don't know, that's a specific use case. And that does seem like something right now, maybe it's Microsoft exclusive because of whatever chip and whatever thing they have in there. But I think this feature is going to be very popular in the future once people figure out the security and safety to make people very comfortable with it.
And of course, we've been talking about Microsoft, we've been talking about Google. All this stuff is essentially free, really. They do have like kind of these paid tiers, right? But a lot of the stuff is just being built into whatever app you're using or whatever browser you're using, right? But as we know, like that's not going to pay for AI, right? AI is way more expensive than however Microsoft can calculate that they sell a few more Windows licenses because they put CoPilot on the thing, right? Like, on the OpenAI side of the house with ChatGPT, they now have this $200 subscription tier for super high-end. I say high. Well, I guess high is the right word here. Like high-end scientific and engineering stuff. So probably things that normal people won't use, but this seems to me like this is how they're going to actually make this stuff profitable, right? It's not my $10 a month or $20 a month, right? It's getting government and huge businesses and institutions to pay $200 a month per user who uses this thing. And it's not a big deal for them because they are, going through hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in cash a year. So they're like, oh yeah, whatever. And it's like a rounding error to give everyone AI at those rates, right? So that's kind of the news with this. And I think, if you make kind of the clickbait headline, like new $200 a year thing, oh my God, but it actually makes a lot of sense. And for the people it's for, it's probably actually a really great deal.
Yeah, basically they say that it has more thinking power for more difficult problems. And so it's specifically aimed at like PhD people and researchers that are in this space and would get that use out of it. So when you think about $200 a month, if it's really able to do these things and think on these levels, I mean, that's actually a very small investment. You're looking at $2,400 a year for like basically a full-time, full access computational thinking machine. It seems like a great deal. And this is the funny thing where like a user like you who's very integrated with GPT, I think I could see you maybe with like a little bit of improvement probably paying this much per month based on what you're getting out of it. Would you say that's true?
Yes, absolutely. When you kind of word it like that, I think of things that I mean, $200 a month, that starts to get pretty expensive, right? But, I mean, what are like subscriptions that are just expensive, right? Like, and I'd say like anything that's above like $50 a month or something like that, are in that zone. I think about, so I have Apple One, right? So the bulk Apple subscription thing, which I think is like $40 a month or something like that. I think it's plus or minus if you get more storage or something added.
Yeah.
But I don't feel bad about that because I'm getting a ton of things for that subscription, right? Like I'm getting, all the entertainment stuff, the music and the TV shows and the movies, I'm getting the fitness stuff. I'm getting the extra storage, all the different, iCloud stuff and integrations and all that kind of stuff.
I guess arcade and news too.
Yeah, arcade news. Yeah, all the other. I don't think I've ever played an arcade game, right? But that goes to show how good of a deal I think that is. That at $40 a month, that makes a lot of sense, and everyone in my family group gets the same thing, right?
Yeah.
So that's $40 a month spread up to, I think you can have like 6 or 7 people in your family group now, or something like that. Like all of a sudden, boom, that makes a lot of sense. So if GPT can offer that many different kind of options, and maybe have like a family plan or something in it. And like, yeah, let's say it's $100 a month, but it runs everything in my life, right? And makes my day a lot easier. Yeah, I could see myself doing that easy, right? Like that doesn't seem that crazy to me.
Yeah, and especially when you come at this from a business perspective, thinking about if this is able to do a lot of these things, and then it's able to do those like scheduled prompts, like we talked about, which is a future thing we're going to be getting with all of these, where it's automatically doing something and automatically able to carry it through. You don't have to be sitting at the keyboard pressing enter. Once we get to that point, it's like you could pay a full-time employee or you could pay $200 a month for this subscription, which has implications, of course, for employment and everything long term. But that's a different podcast. For now, it's just like, is this a great deal? And I think we're going to see a lot of researchers utilizing this in the meantime. But I think it's also our first taste at how much this stuff is going to get if you want to have this much access. We always make that streaming parallel where we had this golden era of like paying very little money for the best possible TV stuff that was on streaming. And it feels like we're there right now. We're in that golden era where we're paying very little money for access to models that are costing way more on the back end than it is for us to be prompting it, because they're getting all of this data and training, and things will get more efficient, but it feels like the future is expensive for our use of AI.
Definitely. And like, I got a question for you. Would you pay for any of the features currently in Apple Intelligence? And I bring this up because 18.2 just came out, and you've been on the beta with those features for a little while now. Would any of these things be worth money at all to you?
I don't think so. Maybe if they tacked it onto the subscription and I was aware that I was paying like $2 a month for summaries and that kind of stuff, maybe I'd be like, okay, it's looped in with. But if it was a subscription to get Apple Intelligence at this point, I don't think so. And that's because it's still limited in what it has, and then it's proving to be kind of okay at everything. But 18.2 did just roll out to the general public. I've been on the beta for a little bit, but this adds things like Genmoji, which, is a fun, cool feature where you can generate your own emojis, AI summaries of things like texts and emails and notifications, which is pretty nice because, you get 18 notifications from an app and it gives you a one-line summary of what went down there. And then mail categories is a new one in Mail. It's kind of a thing that we've seen from third-party services for a while, but now it's coming into Mail. And voice memo, multi-track recording, which is a cool thing where you can layer on top of a voice memo that you already have. And then image playground, which is probably the biggest one, because you're able to take an image and prompt it and add little things and make a fun little square image to send to someone.
And am I right on this that it's got image intelligence now too, in terms of it, like multimodal kind of thing built in now? Is that in the current update?
Yes, it is. So I think you press the camera shutter button to get to the camera. You press and hold to get to visual intelligence. But this is that visual intelligence we've talked about, where I think it will be effective and useful for a lot of people, and they'll gain access to features they didn't know existed before. But it's literally just GPT and Google reverse image search integrated into this. So you press and hold, you take an image of something, and it's able to look at it in two different ways. One is like, tell me about this, GPT side of things. One is reverse image search this on Google reverse image search. So it's not like anything revolutionary from Apple. It's just that they've really added a dedicated button, and it's right there, easily accessible for you.
Right. And yeah, like to go back to my question at the top of this topic, right? Like, I'm not sure if any of this it's not, I don't think it's moving iPhones really, and I don't think it is worth people paying for, right? So, yeah, and it's, the thing is, like, I like all these features, and I think these are cool features. Some I'm like, whatever on a little. Genmoji particularly, I'm like, this is kind of lame. But these are the kind of feature sets we need to have. in a product that has AI that people are going to buy it for the AI. The problem is none of these are that impressive yet in their implementation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is across the board. Everything from how well the summaries do, which I think are pretty good, right? But not me going like, oh, this nails it every time. It's absolutely perfect. This is great. Um, Two things like what you were just talking about with the visual intelligence integration stuff, which is like, oh, like I mean, I'm getting a thing that literally I could already get, right? And it's not even getting there in an incredibly interesting way. Like I like the dedicated button, like that's cool and all, but is it really like and what I mean by that, like, is the fact that it has to go to the third parties kind of lessens the magic of it pretty significantly, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And then, but at the same time, it does feel like this might be Apple's approach here, just kind of integrating other people's tools on the, I guess, like the base hardware or base software side of things. So it feels integrated into your system, kind of like the Shazam thing. That's the example we always talk
Mm-hmm.
about. You now have just a button to automatically generate Shazam. It's not even opening a Shazam app. It feels like it's just a feature of your phone, but it actually is a third party service that it's utilizing. So, that kind of thing, I do think a lot of iPhone users do appreciate that because it's like, it's not this other thing I have to sign up for. It's not this other app I have to download that clutters up my home screen. It's just press and hold this new button, and now I have these extra features. So, I see both sides of it, I guess, that it's like, okay, this app could have been made in a day. This is nothing new. We've had access to these features for a while, but they're making it very easily accessible for people.
Yeah, for sure. And to be clear, I'm 100% on board with all that, right? That's, yeah, like I like all that. And it's just, and it's something I bring up all the time as someone who I think is overall a proponent of this technology. And by that, I mean consumer AIs, LLMs, whatever you want to call it, AI assistants. So many companies releasing things in kind of like a half-baked way is kind of hurting the long-term adoption of this tech in a lot of ways, because it's like, oh yeah, I've got that, it's fine, you know. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
like nothing like super impressive. And I'll say the only thing that's really in my, like, it's anecdotal, but in like practical use, right, that I've seen that I kind of have been impressed when I've used it around people is the voice interface in ChatGPT, and just how natural it sounds, and those kind of
Yep.
conversational things you can have with it. That people are like, oh wow, that's cool, crazy. That's kind of neat. What app is that? Like I've had people just install it on the spot when they're asking me about it. You know, um,
Mm-hmm.
whereas none of this other stuff, I don't know if it really. The idea is cool, but the implementations just aren't there enough to make them like really be must-have items. And but you know, this is I guess just the path of it, right? And in another 6 or 7 months, we're gonna have much more impressive things, and I'm still gonna be like, oh, but it could be so much cooler, and because I'm used to whatever's already out there, right? So
Yeah, because we're definitely using all of these sources. So you're using like the best image generators that
mm,
exist for AI,
yeah,
and then Apple is giving us one that's like, oh my gosh, look at the teeth, look at the eyes, look look at all these problems. But it's a low quality image to send to your friends. Like that. That's the goal of what they have so far. It's fun things. They're not like actual life improving things yet.
mm,
I guess maybe summaries are there, but I also can't wait to see now that this is rolling out to more people. I can't wait to see summaries end up like just threads of hilarious summaries because we saw the one early on of like a breakup text, like a thread of breakup texts getting summarized into one. I've had some that it's like a ring notification. There are 7 people at your front door, and I'm like, 7 what? And it's just 7 different times there were people at my front door or something like that. Um, so those kinds of things I can't wait to see. But I don't know. Yeah, they're not selling any more phones because of Apple Intelligence. I don't think. Maybe because of the promise of it, but not for what it actually delivers. I don't think any of it's must have. But Apple is, they make their money on selling hardware, and they're still killing it right there.
absolutely.
So a lot of Apple Intelligence is all on the iPhone today. Of course, it is on the Mac, but it's like the flagship features we're seeing it delivered on the iPhone. When do you think we would see an Apple version of CoPilot Vision come to Apple Silicon Macs?
Like actually, man, like That's a great question. And not just about Copilot Vision, but you can also compare it to the Google Mariner, their kind of executable browser thing. Is Apple ever gonna? I guess they got to at some point really cross that line into giving the AI kind of visual and control access to something on your machine, right? And if every other browser has that, Safari doesn't, people are going to want to maybe consider that browser. Or if, just in general, because this goes beyond, I mean, we're talking about browsers right now. Forget browsers. Let's talk about the actual like file system, the file structure and folders and apps and all this kind of stuff, right? A really AI that can really control your computer. Is Apple ever going to allow that to happen? And if they don't, will that matter? And I think that it's, we talk about, I mean, I know I just had this whole spiel about how a lot of this AI is not there to be impressive enough to people. I think a thing that would be impressive to people is you wake up in the morning and you tell your computer a list of things that needs to get done for work or whatever it is, and then the computer just does it all. Like you don't even have to think about it, and it's just all done. Is Apple ever going to be that far over the line on getting on board with AI technology that they allow that on a Mac? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see because Apple's so security minded and they're going that direction with AI stuff where it's like this happens on device. But when we're seeing a lot of other companies delivering functions that utilize the cloud and require it, how long until Apple finally crosses over to go, okay, we have to at least give people the option here?
Exactly.